Imagine for a moment that the constant chase for more, the next promotion, the latest gadget, or the validation of others, isn't leading you to happiness but pulling you further away from it. What if true fulfillment wasn't about what you achieve, accumulate, or prove, but rather about how you live and what you prioritize? Epicurus, the ancient Greek philosopher, argued that happiness isn't a matter of chance or external circumstances. It's a skill that can be cultivated. His philosophy offers a perspective that is both radical and profoundly simple. The secret to happiness isn't found in acquiring more, but in desiring less. By focusing on what genuinely matters and letting go of unnecessary cravings, we can escape the endless cycle of dissatisfaction that modern life so often promotes. At the core of Epicurus's philosophy is the belief that pleasure is the highest good. However, unlike the way many interpret pleasure today, Epicurus was not advocating for indulgence or excess. To him, true pleasure wasn't about fleeting gratification, but about the absence of pain and anxiety, a state of deep tranquility and contentment. He believed that once our fundamental needs are met and we free ourselves from unnecessary fears, happiness naturally follows. To better understand this, Epicurus categorized desires into three groups: natural and necessary desires. These include the basic needs required for survival and well-being, such as food, shelter, and meaningful human connection. Fulfilling these leads to true happiness. Natural but unnecessary desires. These include desires that enhance comfort, like luxurious meals or material conveniences. While they may bring pleasure, they are not essential for a happy life. Unnatural and unnecessary desires. These consist of cravings for wealth, status, or power, things society conditions us to chase, but which ultimately lead to endless longing rather than fulfillment. Now, consider how this applies to your own life. How often do you find yourself striving for things that don't bring lasting joy? Have you ever reached a goal only to feel surprisingly empty afterward? Epicurus believed that this cycle of desire and disappointment is one of the greatest sources of human suffering. For him, the key to breaking free lies in distinguishing between meaningful desires and distractions. When we focus only on what is natural and necessary, we simplify our lives, ease our anxieties, and open ourselves to a kind of peace that material possessions and external achievements can never provide. Epicurus didn't just preach this philosophy, he lived it. He chose a simple life, surrounding himself with a small circle of friends and prioritizing connection over material wealth. To him, real richness wasn't measured by possessions, but by gratitude, simplicity, and meaningful relationships. One of his most famous insights captures this perfectly. If you wish to be rich, do not add to your money, but subtract from your desires. This challenges us to rethink what it means to live a wealthy life. Instead of always seeking more, Epicurus invites us to appreciate what we already have. But how can we apply this wisdom in a world that constantly tells us we need more to be happy? Epicurus believed that the first step is self-reflection. By questioning our desires and tracing their origins, we can begin to differentiate between what is essential and what is merely imposed by social expectations. Are the things you pursue truly your own goals, or have they been shaped by external influences? Do they bring genuine and lasting joy, or do they leave you wanting more? Pause for a moment and reflect on your daily life. How much of your time and energy is spent chasing things that add little real value? Epicurus would argue that pursuing unnecessary desires doesn't just drain your resources, it fuels anxiety, dissatisfaction, and a lingering sense of emptiness. To him, simplicity was never about deprivation. It was about clarity. By focusing on what is truly essential and letting go of distractions, we create space for the things that genuinely enrich our lives: nourishing food, meaningful relationships, and time to reflect on and appreciate life's simplest pleasures. One of the cornerstones of Epicurus's philosophy was friendship. He saw it not just as a source of joy, but as a fundamental necessity for a fulfilling life. In his words, of all the things which wisdom provides to make us entirely happy, much the greatest is the possession of friendship. To him, true companionship wasn't just a luxury. It was a refuge, a source of stability in an unpredictable world. Imagine a life where the people around you genuinely support, understand, and uplift you. This was the environment Epicurus sought to create. His home, famously known as the garden, was not a palace filled with riches, but a close-knit community where friends shared meals, exchanged ideas, and laughed together. To Epicurus, the depth of these relationships mattered far more than any amount of wealth or social status. His emphasis on simplicity, gratitude, and connection serves as a powerful antidote to the stresses of modern life. His teachings remind us that happiness isn't some distant reward waiting in the future. It is something we cultivate in the present by focusing on what is truly meaningful. Beyond these principles, Epicurus challenged the way we think about fear, particularly two of the greatest sources of anxiety in human existence, the fear of death and the fear of the unknown. He believed these fears were among the biggest obstacles to happiness, shaping our choices, limiting our ability to enjoy life, and casting a constant shadow over our sense of well-being. His response to these fears, however, was both revolutionary and liberating. Let's begin with the fear of death. For many, death is the ultimate unknown, a looming inevitability that we try to push from our minds. It dictates our ambitions, our anxieties, and even the way we measure success. But Epicurus saw death differently. He argued that it is nothing to fear because, quite simply, we will never experience it. In his famous words, "Death is nothing to us. When we exist, death is not, and when death exists, we are not." In other words, death is the absence of awareness. While we are alive, we do not experience death, and when we are dead, there is no us left to experience anything at all. Therefore, death itself is neither good nor bad. It simply is, and because we will never consciously encounter it, it holds no power over us. This may seem like an abstract concept, but its implications are deeply profound. If we genuinely embrace the idea that death is nothing to fear, we free ourselves from its weight. Instead of worrying about how much time we have left, we can redirect our focus toward making the most of the time we have now. Rather than allowing fear to shape our decisions, we can live with greater boldness, clarity, and presence. Epicurus's perspective also forces us to reconsider our relationship with time itself. Many of us rush through life, believing that fulfillment lies in achieving more before it's too late. But Epicurus taught that the quality of our experiences matters far more than their quantity. A simple, joyful life, whether long or short, is infinitely more valuable than a lifetime spent chasing things that never truly satisfy. Now, let's turn to another deeply rooted fear, the fear of the unknown, especially the forces beyond our control. In Epicurus's time, many believed the gods dictated the course of human life, punishing or rewarding people based on their actions. This belief led to widespread anxiety, as individuals struggled to appease unseen, unpredictable forces. Epicurus, however, offered a radically different perspective. While he did not outright deny the existence of gods, he argued that they were indifferent to human affairs. According to him, the universe operates according to natural laws rather than divine intervention. By understanding these laws and aligning our perspective with them, we can free ourselves from superstition and unnecessary fear. This wasn't just a rejection of religious dogma, it was a philosophy of empowerment. Epicurus taught that by ceasing to worry about things beyond our control, we gain the ability to focus on what we can influence, our choices, our relationships, and our sense of inner peace. Think about how this applies today. While most of us no longer fear vengeful gods, we are still plagued by uncertainty, the unpredictability of the world around us. Economic instability, climate change, health crises, and personal setbacks all remind us that much of life is beyond our control. Epicurus's wisdom remains strikingly relevant. Although we cannot dictate external events, we can choose how we respond to them. By shifting our attention from what we cannot control to what we can, we reclaim our personal power. Instead of being passive victims of circumstance, we become active participants in shaping our own happiness. One of the most effective ways Epicurus suggested cultivating this mindset is through the practice of gratitude. When we focus on what we already have, no matter how small, we reframe our perspective from one of fear to one of appreciation. Rather than worrying about what's missing or what could go wrong, we can take a moment to value what is present. a warm meal, a meaningful conversation, or the beauty of the natural world. But gratitude isn't just a feel-good practice. It's a tool for resilience. By shifting our awareness toward the good in our lives, we strengthen our ability to handle difficulties and find contentment in the present moment. Another way Epicurus's philosophy helps us navigate uncertainty is by embracing simplicity. In a world that often feels overwhelming and chaotic, simplicity brings clarity and stability. When we strip away the unnecessary, whether that means material excess or toxic relationships, we create space for what truly matters. This doesn't mean avoiding life's challenges or ignoring reality. On the contrary, Epicurus believed that facing difficulties with wisdom and courage was necessary for personal growth. By simplifying our focus and concentrating on what we can control, we cultivate the mental and emotional strength needed to endure uncertainty. Epicurus also emphasized the role of community in overcoming fear and instability. He understood that human connection is one of the greatest sources of comfort and resilience. Throughout his life, he surrounded himself with like-minded friends who shared his values, supported one another, and provided a sense of security in an unpredictable world. In today's society, where feelings of isolation and disconnection are common, this lesson is more relevant than ever. Cultivating a strong support system, whether through family, close friends, or a like-minded community, creates a foundation of emotional stability. It reminds us that no matter what happens, we are not alone. Epicurus's teachings on fear, gratitude, and simplicity challenge us to reconsider what it truly means to live well. They urge us to let go of distractions that do not serve us, whether those are unnecessary desires, irrational anxieties, or external pressures, and to focus instead on what brings genuine peace and fulfillment. Take a moment to reflect. What fears are holding you back? What unnecessary wants complicate your happiness? How could you simplify your life, cultivate gratitude, and strengthen the relationships that truly matter? Epicurus believed that happiness is not something we stumble upon, it is something we create. By freeing ourselves from fear and directing our attention to the essentials, we can build a life of lasting peace, purpose, and joy. Epicurus's philosophy teaches us that true happiness is not found in wealth, status, or external achievements, but in simplicity, gratitude, and freedom from fear. However, his teachings go beyond just avoiding unnecessary desires. They challenge us to rethink what it means to live a meaningful life. For Epicurus, meaning wasn't found in grand accomplishments or public recognition, but in the small, intentional choices we make every day. One of the most profound aspects of his philosophy is the emphasis on mindfulness, the ability to be fully present and engaged in our own lives. In a world that constantly pushes us to do more, achieve more, and chase the next milestone, Epicurus invites us to slow down and truly experience each moment. Happiness, he believed, is not something we find in the distant future, but something we cultivate in the present. Consider how often we move through life on autopilot, eating while scrolling through our phones, spending time with loved ones while distracted by work, or striving toward goals without questioning their true value. Epicurus argued that by becoming more mindful, by actively paying attention to our thoughts, emotions, and actions, we can break free from this cycle of distraction and dissatisfaction. Mindfulness also allows us to appreciate the simple pleasures that life has to offer. For Epicurus, happiness was not about extravagant indulgence, but about recognizing the beauty in everyday experiences, the warmth of the sun, a shared meal with friends, or the feeling of deep contentment after a thoughtful conversation. He believed that when we learn to truly savor these moments, we realize that a fulfilling life does not require excess, only awareness and appreciation. But mindfulness is not just about embracing life's joys. It is also about confronting its difficulties with wisdom and courage. Epicurus understood that uncertainty, setbacks, and pain are unavoidable. However, rather than allowing these challenges to consume us, he encouraged us to face them with a calm and steady mind. One of the most valuable tools for navigating life's hardships, according to Epicurus, is self-reflection. By consistently examining our choices, behaviors, and values, we ensure that we are living in alignment with what truly matters. Reflection allows us to recognize the habits, fears, and attachments that may be holding us back, empowering us to make intentional changes that lead to greater freedom and peace. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Are there patterns or desires you've been pursuing that no longer serve you? Have you been chasing fulfillment in places where it cannot be found? Epicurus believed that by asking these questions and making small, thoughtful adjustments, we move closer to a life of contentment. Another fundamental lesson from Epicurus is the importance of balance. While he championed simplicity, he did not advocate for extreme deprivation. He believed that pleasure and enjoyment were essential to life, but they should be pursued in moderation and with mindfulness. For instance, enjoying a delicious meal or treating yourself to a moment of indulgence is perfectly fine, as long as these pleasures do not become obsessions that rule your life. By maintaining balance, we prevent ourselves from being controlled by fleeting desires. Epicurus also saw purpose as an essential ingredient for a meaningful life. However, his idea of purpose was not tied to fame, fortune, or ambitious accomplishments. Instead, he believed that true purpose is found in the way we live our daily lives, how we treat others, how we spend our time, and how we cultivate peace within ourselves. Meaning is not something we must chase or prove to others. It is something we create through mindful choices, gratitude, and connection. In a world that often pressures us to achieve more, do more, and be more, Epicurus offers a refreshing perspective. He reminds us that fulfillment is not something we have to earn. It is something we can cultivate through simplicity and self-awareness. One of the most inspiring aspects of his life was his commitment to practicing what he preached. Unlike other philosophers who lived in luxury or sought public influence, Epicurus built a small, close community known as the Garden. It was not a grand estate or a place of wealth, but a modest sanctuary where he and his friends lived simply, shared resources, and supported one another. This intentional way of life reflected his deepest belief that happiness does not come from material success, but from the quality of our relationships and the depth of our experiences. The garden was more than just a home. It was a living example of the life Epicurus encouraged others to pursue, one centered on simplicity, friendship, and inner peace. While we may not live in a literal garden today, we can create our own version of the garden by prioritizing the things that bring us true happiness, whether that means fostering meaningful relationships, letting go of unnecessary worries, or embracing the beauty of the present moment. Epicurus's teachings are more relevant now than ever, in a time where life often feels overwhelming, disconnected, and consumed by external pressures. His philosophy provides a powerful antidote. His wisdom invites us to reconsider what we truly need to be happy, urging us to focus on the essentials rather than chasing illusions of success. Imagine what your life could look like if you fully embraced these ideas. What would happen if you released the unnecessary desires and fears that weigh you down? How would it feel to shift your focus toward the simple pleasures that already exist around you? Epicurus believed that happiness is not a distant goal but something within everyone's reach. It does not require wealth, status, or extraordinary achievements. It only requires the willingness to look inward, to let go of distractions, and to embrace the beauty of a simple, intentional life. His philosophy challenges us to stop chasing illusions of happiness and start appreciating the joys that are already present. It encourages us to live with clarity, purpose, and compassion, not just for ourselves, but for those around us. So take a moment to reflect. What is one small change you can make today to align your life more closely with these principles? Maybe it's choosing gratitude over worry, simplifying a part of your routine, or reaching out to a friend for a genuine conversation. Whatever it is, remember that even the smallest changes can lead to profound transformation. Epicurus's message is as clear as it is timeless. Happiness is not something we find in the future. It is something we create in the present. By embracing simplicity, gratitude, and mindfulness, we can stop chasing and start truly living.